Councillor Helena Hart.
Mr. Mayor, Margaret Thatcher was without doubt one of the greatest leaders this country has ever known. She was also someone whose incredible personal qualities will stay with us for the rest of our lives. Mr. Mayor, I have to say I am as proud of Margaret Thatcher's incredible legacy tonight as I was in this chamber in 1990 when former Councillor Joan Ryan, sitting over there, called me an unreconstructed Thatcherite.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I was then, I am now, and I always will be. The Margaret Thatcher Prime Minister changed the very essence of this nation. Those of us who were actually around in the late 70s will never forget how the rest of Europe looked down on us, crippled by strikes, which they called the English disease, and sneering at sterling. Everywhere we looked at home, we saw nothing but gloom and doom. Fears of Soviet threats to freezing homes and 3-day weeks. I certainly remember the rubbish piling up in the streets and pickets blocking hospital entrances. We were ruled by the politics of envy and tax rates that stifled any attempt at self-improvement. It even seemed a crime to own your own home, always seeking to level down, never up. No aspiration, no ambition, a country on the brink of despair. Who would have thought that one woman with conviction and belief that there was a better way, could have effected such a change across the globe? And for those who mock her St. Francis speech on peace in front of number 10, just remember who it was who was so absolutely pivotal in the negotiations to end the Cold War. Margaret Thatcher, our Prime Minister. The same Margaret Thatcher whose warmth, compassion, interest in and commitment to local people ensured that her memory here will endure forever. I remember several junior ministers' constituents telling me once how their once active local MPs no longer had any time, or in fact inclination, to visit their constituencies once they had attained ministerial office, except on the very rarest occasions. Too busy, they said, were much too important. Those same constituents were amazed to hear that Mrs. Thatcher, the Prime Minister, was not only in Finchley at least once every 3 weeks, but that she held regular surgeries and attended even the most humble gatherings. She also took a very great interest in this council, which I have to say she felt could have been far more efficient and cost-effective. Something which led the St. Paul's councillors to promise that we would always, and people have heard me say this many times in this chamber, seek to provide the best possible services for the lowest possible cost. A promise which has stayed with me for the last 23 years, in which I now feel has finally been fulfilled. How much happier she would have been with us today. She was always such a part of things locally. This included her simply refusing to go to bed after the local elections in 1990, until she categorically knew that Mary Phillips, Mike Freer and I had all been elected in St. Paul's ward. When we were on our third recount for our third seat, at past 3 o'clock in the morning, we finally persuaded her to go to bed, citing the very important reason that she actually had a country to run in a few hours' time. We finally agreed that on the strict understanding that we would let her know the result immediately was to hand. Mrs. Thatcher was not only interested in what people thought, she actually cared, and more importantly, she listened. How many politicians do we all know whose eyes glaze over when you speak to them, and then desperately look over your shoulders to see who could possibly be of more importance to them? Not Mrs. T. Her eyes were always firmly fixed on you, and every word digested. And woe betide any politician who tried to get away with what they thought she wanted to hear. She could cut through sycophancy like a knife. Very early on, she just threw me a particularly telling question, she said, "Mrs. Hart, I will always listen to what you have to say, on 2 conditions. 1, that you really believe what you're saying to me, and 2, that you are able to back it up in some way." Advice I have tried to follow all my political life. But when it came to constituents, no one could have been kinder or more understanding. When she spoke of being one of us, as she put it, she always put herself on everybody else's level, with exactly the same hopes and aspirations. Her vision, her absolute conviction that no matter who you were, or where you came from, or from whatever background, all deserved an equal chance, has inspired people from every walk of life and from every generation. Kenneth Baker said we will never see her like again. I'm sure we won't. But how fortunate we all were to have had her for so long.